Shalom, and thank you for joining us. Our special guest today is Norman Braman, one of the world's most prominent philanthropists and a tireless champion of the Jewish people and of Israel. He is also a great civic leader. In addition, he's also a very successful businessman, including being Chief Executive Officer of Braman Enterprises, which is an umbrella company for his many car dealerships. He also owned the Philadelphia Eagles football team. He supports many important causes and served as the president of the Greater Miami Jewish Federation, also a founder of the Holocaust Memorial in Miami Beach, in addition to providing the funding for the Braman Family Breast Cancer Institute and the Braman Family Foundation, which supports a wide spectrum of art, religious and charitable causes. Mr. Braman will share his concerns on Israel, Jewish life in general, and education following these messages. With us now is Norman Braman. Norman, it's a pleasure to have you back on the Shalom Show.
My pleasure.
It's been a while.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. We last met when we were at the Holocaust Memorial event in North Miami. Such a big gathering there, and opponents making noise across the street. I can't forget that. Interesting. Anyway, Norman, how do you see the challenges facing Israel and Jewish life at this strange time in history?
It's a very unsettling time. It's an unsettling time for a variety of reasons. The relationship between President Obama and Israel has obviously been a rocky one, certainly probably improved in the last 6 months or so. The boycott movement throughout the world, the effort to attempt to delegitimize Israel, the work that we have to do with the generation, the young Jews living here who really do not understand how much Israel means to them. They didn't grow up in the same time that I did, in remembering what it was to be an American Jew prior to the establishment of the State of Israel. I always, when I speak to young people, I try to explain to them what Israel has meant, and I don't think they understand. I don't think our generation has done a particular good job and so that they understand how important Israel is to them as American Jews, and for that matter, probably Jews throughout the world.
Well, the problem is it is easier to be entertained, distracted, preoccupied with the superficial rather than turn the idiot box off, the TV off, and think a little and count God's blessings.
I think it's more profound than that. I remember graduating from school, and I remember all the fields in the United States that were closed to Jews, that there were a limited number of major Jewish law firms, and all the other major law firms had no Jews. There were no Jews in the insurance industry. There were very few Jews in banking, very few Jews in investment banking, other than Goldman Sachs and Lehman Brothers and one or two others. The fields among some of the major corporations in the United States that just would never hire a Jew simply because he was a Jew. And the general lack of respect, I think, that existed for Jews in general being always thought, well, Jews are smart, but they don't fight back, they don't do anything. And Israel changed all that. I'm convinced Israel changed all the advantages that Jews have today, that the generations have since the establishment of Israel, has been augmented by Israel. And I worry that that dedication to Israel and the understanding of, as I said before, of how much Israel, how important Israel is to them, it just hasn't penetrated. And I don't think we've made a conscientious effort with the young people to understand that.
Well, that is a serious problem, of course. What are your opinions regarding the creation of the United Nations and its role historically, the hope everyone had for that institution, and what it has evolved into today?
Not in the United Nations is a disgrace. Thank God for the Security Council. Thank God for the United States and the consistent support that the United States has provided with the Security Council. But when you get into all the other agencies of the United Nations, you can see that it's developed into organizations that have one basic purpose, and that's to discredit Israel and to actually delegitimize Israel. So while I probably believe that we need the United Nations, I concern myself about how much damage the United Nations and some of these agencies have inflicted on the state of Israel.
You're right. Let's talk about positives.
I'm not a happy person when it comes to everything happening in the world, as you can surmise today. I think that I feel I worry whether there's going to be an Israel in the next 50 years from now. I worry about that.
Well, that's a disconcerting concern. I would hope that what we will see in the next few years will reassure you. I believe that through education, continued technological advancements in Israel and so forth, that sensible solutions will be found to the local problems there, even though there are many people who are skeptical. What are your thoughts regarding the peace process? Israel's made so many concessions for peace, and they seem to be often in vain.
I'm still back to the fundamental problem, frankly, of how do you make peace with people who want to destroy you and who are dedicated to your destruction. At the same time, I know George Mitchell. I've known him for a number of years. I, one time, had very extensive business interests in Ireland and spent a great deal of time there. The enmity between the Irish Protestants in the Northern Ireland and the Catholics in Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland was as severe and as fierce as the problems among the Arab countries and the state of Israel. And George Mitchell was able to accomplish a great deal. So maybe I'm being overly pessimistic, but I still think there's a difference between Ireland and there, and the difference. While the Protestants and the Catholics don't necessarily agree, it is a common religion of Christianity. So much of the problems involving the state of Israel has to do with the fact that I believe that the Arab nations, the Arab people, will never be comfortable having a Jewish state in the Middle East.
Some people argue that the majority of Muslims, of the 1.2 billion Muslims in the world, if that's the correct number, are really peaceful, and it is a minority of Muslims who have this desire to see a world dominated by Islam. However, critics claim that in Nazi Germany, a minority managed to lead Nazi Germany in perpetrating the atrocities that took place.
I don't think the analogy is accurate. The Nazis came to power, and when Hitler was appointed chancellor, it was a democratic process, unfortunately. And that's not the situation in the Arab countries. There's not an Arab nation that one can claim to be a democracy. But I'd like to see the so-called silent majority of Muslims or Arabs voice themselves in a manner that their leaders and the world can see that they are moderate, and they're not a group that's dedicated to the destruction of the state of Israel. I mean, that has not been demonstrated. I haven't seen this majority out in the streets advocating for peace. I haven't seen that. One of the most disturbing aspects is the role of the intellectuals, whether it's Jordan, whether it's Egypt, whether it's any of these countries. The intellectuals seem to be more hostile to peace and relationships with the state of Israel.
How odd it is that despite Christiane Amanpour's denials, the biggest celebration recorded in Arab countries was on 9/11. They were all dancing in the streets, cheering after the atrocities were perpetrated against America. What are your thoughts on that?
It speaks for itself, doesn't it? There's film footage that I've seen of that, and wide evidence of it.
Norman, I would like us to continue on this basic direction of questions and unfortunate subject matter, but we have to pause for these commercial messages. We're back with Norman Braman. Norman, let's talk about education. Education really holds the best hope for a brighter future for all of us, whether it is worldwide and of course in Jewish life also. What are your thoughts with regards to the complacency in the Jewish community?
Well, I don't think there's complacency in the Jewish community as far as education is concerned. I mean, if you look at the achievements of Israel today, and being Israel is a technological powerhouse and cyber powerhouse. The dedication to education, as far as Jews are concerned, are the same as they've always been. The same with my family. The same as my parents were immigrants who arrived in the United States at the early part of the 20th century, when the great wave of Eastern European Jews arrived here. My father was a barber, and my father never earned more than $75, $85 a week in his life, never drove a car. My mother came here when she was 12 years old with her older sister, who was 14, and as soon as they got off the boat, they went to work in a sewing factory in Philadelphia and sent money back to Romania so that their mother and father and younger sister could come. My mother was functionally illiterate. However, all the emphasis growing up was education, 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 and opportunity. My father came from Poland, where there was no opportunity, where education was based on a quota system. And I think this is the story of the success of Jews all over. Even during the dark days of the Soviet Union, you had Jews who still thirsted for education. And it played a significant part in the wonderful advances that Israel has achieved since the Russian immigration there. So our position today as Jews, and in terms of the number of Nobel Prizes that Jews have won, is unparalleled. I don't want to get into these absurd statistics that we see relative to how many Arabs have won Nobel Prizes versus Jews, but I think that dedication and that thirst and that hunger for education and to fulfill the needs that education provides and the advantage that education provides is as pervasive today as it was during my time.
And these are the exact words that your old friend Stan Chesley echoes. Yeah. In fact, just the other day in an interview we were speaking about this. And by the way, he asked me to convey his greetings to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let's talk about the positives a little more. The achievements of the State of Israel in 60 odd years. Please tell our audience how you see the achievements.
Well, all one can compare where Israel was, where Israel is today, for example, where the United States was 60 years after we became a nation. And 60 years after the United States became a nation, we were on the brink of a civil war where more Americans died than all the other wars, by the way, put together. You include World War II and Korea and everything, more Americans died with a smaller population that we had in this country than everything else combined when we were destroying ourselves. And here you have the State of Israel certainly with a very diverse population, as we all know, that is going through an economic windfall today that differs from the problems that are being experienced by every major country in the world who has suffered from this economic downturn. That's not by accident. It's the fact that Stanley Fischer, who I think I read in yesterday's newspaper, was voted the most outstanding banking executive in the entire world, handling the economy of Israel, the equivalent of what our chair of the Federal Reserve is. And there are reasons for that.
How do you see the challenges facing the economy in this country and society in general?
Well, I worry about that because I really believe that a strong America is the greatest factor which ensures a great Israel and a sustaining Israel. A weak America poses a threat to the future of Israel. So I concern myself about the United States, our economy, and the general situation in this country.
A point I'd like to share with you is our concern with regards to Israel's image. There's a media war going on in which anti-Semites, now calling themselves anti-Zionists, are doing an increasingly effective job of delegitimizing Israel, as you have mentioned. How do you see the challenges facing Israel and Jewish life in general with regards to the media war, which the Shalom show, by the way, for 31 years is in the forefront of?
We're not going to win the media war in general. And the important place to win the media war is here in the United States, and I think we're winning it here. All the studies I've seen, all the polling indicates very strong support for Israel remains here in the United States. But being anti-Israel in the matter of which I believe is equivalent to anti-Semitism is endemic. It's what's new. It's been going on for thousands of years. Why would it change now? I mean, the using Israel as just a disguise for anti-Semitism is exactly what's occurring today.
Yes, it is very distressing. Also the lies by omission, how there is a total inconsistency. When Israel is attacked, the world reacts one way, and when Israel finally retaliates, the world reacts another way. So what are your thoughts on that?
Again, the romance involving the State of Israel faded a long time ago. And that romance isn't going to return in the near future, if ever. But again, it gets back to the United States. We are the only world global power. We're the only world global military power. We're still the economic engine that's the standard of the world. If all those three fall, it's a danger to the State of Israel. So I think we have to concentrate ourselves on working to bring the United States back to economic health as quickly as we can, and do the best we can to make sure that the United States remains a very strong, vital power in the world. That's the best guarantee Israel has for its future.
Norman, you've been here in South Florida for quite a few years, and you've been president of the Jewish Federation of Greater Miami and many other organizations you're involved with too. Tell us about this large Jewish community of South Florida.
Well, I can tell you that as far as the Miami Jewish community is concerned, I'm proud of what we've accomplished here and what we're still accomplishing here. Despite the negatives of the economy, our campaign has remained strong. And Miami's interesting because the county, Miami-Dade County, 25 years ago, had 100,000 more Jews than it has today. This is a community that's essentially a very young community. Very few Jews here have the gray hair and the lines that I have around my face. We've been able to build a very aggressive, young, competent leadership group here. The younger generations have responded the way I'd like to see younger generations respond throughout the United States. And it's due to the fact that all of us are still involved. The last 11 or 12 presidents of this federation are still actively involved in the Jewish community. None of us have recused ourselves. None of us have stepped back. When there's a major event, we're all there. We all cover our cards. We all see people that we feel should be involved in our community. We still go on missions together to Israel. We've kept this community together, and I think those of us of the older generations have inspired the younger generations. Now that's in contrast to other cities that have had a major decline, both in their campaigns, both in their involvement with Israel. But we're a model here. A lot of that is due to Jacob Solomon, who you know, the executive vice president of our federation, our professional, and the staff that he's been able to assemble. So from the standpoint of our community, I'm very pleased where we are. We're a model community in terms of how we've taken care of our Holocaust survivors here, and we provide them home care. We haven't pressured outside groups. We feel an obligation to that. We do things in a different way during the high holidays. Any single Jew who does not belong to a synagogue, we provide the means for that individual to attend High Holy Day services, regardless of whether he has any affiliation with any synagogue. So we do things. We're very involved in our Jewish day schools, and we recognize that we still have a lot of work to do, but I'm pleased as to where we are.
Norman, you visited Israel so many times in the course of your career. What changes do you see? What are your thoughts with regards to the future of Israel?
We have to bring more American Jews to Israel. We don't do a good enough job with that. Birthright's done a good job, and they need help, and I've been a supporter of Birthright. But I think it's more than just taking Jews to Israel. We have to get back to what we said at the beginning of the program. We have to explain, we can't ask someone to what they can do for Israel. We have to explain to them what Israel has done for them. And if we're able to achieve that, then we're going to be successful in reversing this trend here. If all the polls of young American Jews show less affinity for Israel, and the statistics do not improve year after year.
Norman, all we can do is hope for a brighter future for all of us and the Jewish community and for Israel. I want to thank you very much for being with us again.
I want to correct you. We have to do more than hope. We have to work for it.
Absolutely right. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I'll be right back. This concludes our special show for today with Norman Braman. I'm Richard Peritz. Thank you for being with us.